Okay, good evening everybody, and happy Wednesday. It is already the middle of the week, but today is a very, very special day because it is the last and final day of August, the last day of the month. Tomorrow is September 1st, and man, did the markets close horribly for the end of the month close. So if anybody has TradingView or any sort of charting software, usually what I like to do is at the last day of every single month, right after the market closes, I like to pull up a list of all the charts, all the stocks that I go through, put on a monthly time frame, and look at the closes. So the S&P 500 closed down about 4% for the month to about 39.54. The NASDAQ was also down about 5%, and so was the Dow Jones Industrial Average. But all major indices showing really, really heavy selling on heavy volume into the close of the last day of the month. And I think that's going to continue into September. Now, a couple of streams ago, we were talking about, historically, September is a pretty negative time for the stock market, especially now that we have the Federal Reserve giving essentially all systems a go here to continue to tighten monetary policy, to continue to raise interest rates. So we'll talk about that tonight. We will talk about the prospects for the market. How do we think it's going to do into September and into the second half of the year? We're also going to talk about Okta. So Okta is a cybersecurity company that reported earnings after the bell today. If you guys want to follow along with that, if you type Okta, O-K-T-A in the chat, the Nightbot will drop the investor deck. We will be doing a deep dive into Okta's earnings report. We'll also be talking about some concerns that I have for the company. Obviously, this time last year, they made an acquisition of Auth0, which is another sort of single sign-on cybersecurity company in the identity and access management space. That merger, that M&A activity has been a little bit rough, so we'll talk about that. I have some insight for you guys. I have, formerly I had a friend that was an enterprise account executive at Okta, so I'll key you guys in on that. Also, we will be talking about New York Fed President John Williams. Okay, so yesterday, New York Fed President John Williams came out and made some very, very convincing statements on the overall monetary policy environment. He sees that the interest rate is probably going to stay elevated all the way until 2023. They're probably going to raise that short-term interest rate to about 3.5% and hold it there for about a year. So essentially that signals to the market that there's going to be no pivot, okay? No pivot whatsoever. We saw markets sell off pretty hard, and I think that confirms our thesis of don't fight the Federal Reserve. Lastly, everybody, we will conclude the night by talking about Adam Neumann, okay? So Adam Neumann was the founder and CEO of WeWork. We all know how that turned out. However, I do want to touch on a couple of things, okay? Because there was a major firm out there, Andreessen Horowitz, as they are known by A16Z. They actually wrote Adam Neumann a check for about $350 million last month for his new startup called Flow. Now, I want to sort of frame this whole conversation not to get into the weeds if Adam Neumann did something wrong. Is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? But I sort of want to talk about this deal and one of the specific interviews that Adam Neumann just did with Andrew Ross Sorkin about 9 months ago. This was the first public interview where somebody interviewed Adam Neumann in relation to what happened with WeWork, and I thought it was an unbelievable interview that we could all learn a lot from. All right, so that's the introduction, everybody. I will close my laptop. Actually, let's just take a quick look at treasuries. Let's take a look at some bonds here. So that US 10-year treasury yield trading at 3.208%. That 2-year treasury yield is obviously inverted. That part of the curve trading at 3.5%. So we're seeing a steeper yield curve inversion here. Obviously, that is a pretty bad sign that a recession is on the horizon. However, we already did get 2 consecutive negative prints of GDP. We'll also talk about that. But let's see who we have in the chat tonight, my friends. Hopefully everybody is having a fantastic Wednesday. I see Otto is here. It says, hey, Tom. The one and only photos from around New York. Joe C. Lynn is here. Minraj says, what's up, Tom? Good to see you, Minraj. ABD says, hey guys, good to see you. Jeff says, thought this was daytime for a second. Welcome, my friend Jeff. British Gray is here, says, good Wednesday evening, Tom. Denise, New York City says, hey Tom and everybody. Charlie Richardson, Jonathan Richards, Lilla, Charlie Richardson, Sunshine After Rain, photos from around New York, Solo 401, Brian and Sally. Give me 1 second, my friends, because so I put away my microphone last night, and I forgot to wind it up. So the microphone is in this massive big ball of a knot. So allow me 2 seconds, and I just need to untangle the mic. So quick intermission here. All right, I think that's the best we're gonna do, team. So we'll just have to live with the tangled mic. But we'll get it done, we'll get the job done, we'll bang it out, don't worry. We are standing directly under the very famous 432 Park Avenue building. Check this out. Just gives you some perspective of just how massive this building is. Hey, Austin City Limits. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome. D says, hey, Walks in Wall Street. Welcome, D. BP says, hey, Tom, Bridgewater just opened, or Ray Dalio just opened his Bridgewater in Singapore. Yeah, so I did hear about that. We'll actually talk about Ray Dalio a little bit tonight in relation to the don't fight the Fed thesis. I see Gary says, hey, Tom, nice to hear you. It's good to see you too, Gary. It's a beautiful night on Billionaires Row here in New York City. We are looking at the very famous 432 Park Avenue building. One of my personal favorites. Very controversial building, but one of my favorites. So everybody, I guess we'll start off. Hey, I see Susanna is here, says hello, Tom. So I guess we'll start off the chat or the stream. We had a cybersecurity company, so it's pretty much been Cyber Week the past 2 weeks. We've been covering a lot of publicly traded companies that have been reporting quarterly earnings. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, we did a deep dive into Palo Alto Networks, which I believe is really the leader in the sector for cybersecurity. We covered CrowdStrike, which is a cybersecurity company that specializes in sort of like endpoint cybersecurity. So securing endpoints. But tonight we are going to be talking about Okta. So Okta trades under the ticker symbol OKTA. And they are a cybersecurity company that specializes in identity and access management cybersecurity. One of their main competitors is actually Ping Identity, that used to trade under the ticker symbol PING. However, that particular company was actually taken private by a very, very famous private equity firm that was founded by Orlando Bravo. So that PE firm is called Thoma Bravo. And the reason why I wanted to zone in on cybersecurity earnings specifically is I want to put everybody's attention onto the particular reaction to these earnings. Okay, so Okta got clocked today after the bell. I think they're down 10%. I mean, if you guys could keep me honest in the chat, if you just look up the share price of Okta, down pretty big after hours. So they did beat on both the top and the bottom line. Okta reported quarterly earnings after the bell, and they ended the quarter with 16,400 customers. They posted about $452 million in quarterly revenue. That's up about 43% year over year. And they posted an adjusted loss of about 10 cents. Now, I know that sounds bad, right? You want to see companies that are profitable. However, many analysts on Wall Street expected negative 31 cents a share on $430 million worth of revenue, okay? So we had a beat on both the top and the bottom line, but I think the statements that Fed Chair Jerome Powell made on Friday and the statements following Fed Chair's speech on Tuesday by New York Fed President John Williams essentially is signaling to the market that we no longer care about only top-line revenue growth. It's time to get serious on profitability here. Okay, and we know the sort of explanation for that is because when interest rates are artificially low, companies can borrow essentially in perpetuity at very, very low rates and use that for R&D, hire their sales force, and it doesn't really matter because money is free. But as interest rates move up, a lot of these tech companies that have earnings priced out into the future, well, those future earnings are now worth a lot less in today's dollars because rates are higher. So we'll talk about that. We are outside the Ferrari dealership. Now, I'm not sure if this is a dealership here or just a showroom, but this is right off of Park Avenue and 56th Street. And I think that's probably very, I guess you could say coincidental, right? Coincidental that you would have a Ferrari showcase or a dealership right here when, you know, this is where we have all the hedge funds. So, something to think about. I'll give you guys a view on this side. Yeah, Christian Wilson says Neil Kashkari. Yeah, so Neil Kashkari is I believe the Minneapolis Fed chair. And Neil Kashkari actually came out and said that he's actually quite pleased with the market's reaction to the Jackson Hole speech. So that tells you all you need to know right there about not fighting the Fed. Hey, Marcy is here. Says, I'll take the red one. Good to see you, Marcy. Welcome. Rare Bear, welcome. Lynn Denise NYC says, if you have, that means I highly recommend picking one up. Nick says Okta's down $10. Copy that. So here's an interesting thing I think we need to pay attention to surrounding this earnings report. Hey, Dan Zhang says, Tom, the blue Ferrari is a SF90. It costs between $800,000 to $1 million. Oh my God, for a car, dude, that's insane. That's ridiculous, man. Hey, I mean, I guess they're premium cars, so it comes with a premium price, am I right? Felix says, hey Tom, you gonna get a car? Definitely not. I think I told you guys, if I was ever gonna get a car, I'd probably get a Tesla. I think if I were to ever get a car, I'd probably get a Tesla, but that's well far off, let's just say that. If you look across the street, everybody, you can see the beautiful Seagram building. This is actually one of my favorite buildings in New York City. We're gonna walk over there and then we're actually gonna turn right back around and head uptown. I wanna walk down Central Park South tonight, reminisce on some old memories. We'll talk about Apple a little bit. But I was on the earnings conference call for Okta, and the CEO said a couple of very key things that were concerning to me. Okay, so let's just review that for a second here as a group together on the stream. Back in 2021, so last year, Okta made an acquisition of a cybersecurity company called Auth0. Now, I'm not sure if anybody has heard of this particular company, but the reason why I want to talk about this is because we've had conversations about the difficulties with assimilating workforces after a big merger. Okay, so for some context here, at my previous company, we went through a massive merger. Okay, you're talking about, you know, tens of thousands of employees on each side. Wow, check out the Seagram building tonight. You're talking about tens of thousands of employees on each side of the merger. And one of the things that's very difficult is if companies' cultures are very, very different, it turns out to be a big disaster. And I think that's what's happening here with Okta. So the CEO came on the earnings call and said that they're having some issues post-merger with Auth0, particularly in blending their sales teams with the core Okta sales team. And this has led to higher than normal attrition rates in Okta's sales team, leading to a lot of new hires. And when you hire a new salesperson, there's a ramp-up period. So if you're new to Okta and selling cybersecurity, well, you're going to need to be trained. They're going to need to invest money in you. And that is going to elongate some of these sales cycles, and that's exactly what we saw on that quarterly earnings report. So for some context here and for even some further clarity, one of my good friends that I used to work with, at a major telco company back in the day, this was one of my first sales jobs when I was still in college as an account executive. At the time, we worked in the same office. He was an enterprise account executive. He was one of the top performers in the entire United States. And he left to go work for Okta. And at the time, obviously Okta has doubled in size since he's been there. So he's done very, very well for himself. But it's funny enough that the CEO of Okta mentioned this on the earnings call that said we're having extreme attrition in account executives and enterprise account executives because my friend, I just recently had a conversation with him. I may actually meet up with him tomorrow. He actually just left and went to a company called Snowflake. And funny enough, we've actually been talking about Snowflake because they reported quarterly earnings last week. So he's going to be a strategic account executive at Snowflake, selling into a select core of 10 accounts. So I'll sort of explain a little bit how that sales cycle works in a minute. Hey, Paul Greenwell is here. Welcome, Paul. Good to see you. Thank you for joining the stream. Sanjib is here, says, hey, Tom, how are you? Good to see you. Big Talk, welcome. Kirby is here. Austin City Limits, Exploration. So I guess I'll quickly explain the hierarchy of a sales org here, because a lot of times I get emails of people that are interested in getting into tech sales or software sales, and I think it's important just to quickly review the hierarchy and exactly what that means. So we're standing outside the Seagram building, but check this out. If you look all the way in the distance, this is the very top of the One Vanderbilt building, absolutely beautiful. And this is the very front of the Seagram building, my absolute favorite building in New York. I'll give you guys a view of the top. So here's how a traditional sales org would look at your average tech company or software company, okay? You're probably going to have something that's called a BDR or an SDR, and those acronyms stand for Sales Development Representative and Business Development Representative. Okay, and that's sort of like the entry-level sales position at a particular software company. And your job as an SDR or a BDR is to make cold calls, send out emails, to set up client appointments with the account executives. Okay, so as you move up the ranks, you get to account executive, where you're pretty much selling into small to medium-sized businesses, or SMB, okay, or SMB. And from there, you can go to mid-market account executive, which is exactly how it sounds. You're selling into medium-sized businesses. And then the goal is to get into enterprise sales, or an enterprise account executive, where you're probably selling into businesses that are in the Fortune 500, maybe Global 2000 and the like. However, there's even a step above. Well, some people would say it's sort of a lateral move, but that is called strategic account executive. So a strategic account executive, companies tend to hire very, very well-seasoned and well-versed salespeople to handle strategic accounts. So these are the largest corporations, the largest businesses in the entire world, where they actually have dedicated salespeople at a particular company to only focus on those type of people, or those type of customers. So Okta came out and said, look, we're having massive attrition. This merger is not going the way we planned. We shed about half of our enterprise account executives. We had to hire new enterprise account executives. And what that has done is that has elongated our sales cycle. So a lot of the deals that we thought were going to close this quarter, they spilled over in the next quarter because a lot of these reps need to be trained. Okay, so if anybody's interested in tech sales or getting your feet wet, maybe applying or making a career change, that's sort of how the hierarchy is going to work. And I still believe in Okta as a company. I think they are on a very, very positive trajectory. So based upon the earnings call, if anybody is interested in an account executive position, Okta is definitely hiring. Hey Ice, what's up? Bernard Friedman is here, says hey Tom, welcome Bernard. Yeah, Dr. Longus has loved this strip right here. Hey, Mr. Lucas the dog says Auth0 is from Argentina. We have 70% inflation rate, so attrition rates are huge because we have to change jobs every year to avoid salary depreciation. Oh my God, that's horrible, man. That's terrible. Well, we have a lot of viewers here from Argentina, so thank you all for joining. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know how people deal with that high of an inflation rate. I don't even know how they operate. I feel so bad for people that have to deal with, 50% inflation. I mean, just think about what we're dealing with here in the United States, and we're only dealing with, 9% inflation. So definitely horrible. Hey, Austin City Limits is here. Says, wow, just checked the market. Futures and NASDAQ is 1.2% in the red for tomorrow. Yeah, Austin City Limits, I think, what we were just talking about is today was the last trading day of the month. Okay, so today was the last trading day for the month of August. So here's what I like to do on the last trading day of the month. And we're gonna walk uptown, everybody. We're gonna go to 57th Street and then we're gonna make a left. We're gonna check out Central Park South, Billionaires Row. So on the last trading day of the month, I like to pull up a monthly chart. So you could look at charts on a daily time frame, a weekly time frame, and a monthly time frame. And when you look at it on the monthly time frame, you tend to get a better picture of the long-term overall trend. And the closes on the monthly were absolutely egregious. So if you have tradingview.com or something like that, pull up a monthly of the SPX, the NASDAQ, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Really, really bad closes. And what you never want to see is on the last 2 trading days of the month, the markets sell off on higher than average volume. And today we started to see a lot of volume pour in there, which was definitely not good. But I think this just goes back to our original thesis, and essentially what Fed Chair Jerome Powell is telegraphing the market is essentially don't fight the Fed, right? The Fed is going to continue to raise interest rates. We heard on Tuesday from the New York Fed President John Williams. He said that high inflation is likely to require the central bank's short-term rate to be held above 3.5% throughout 2023. Okay, and this is when many people, myself included, that was thinking potentially that the Fed may pivot, which essentially means going from quantitative tightening and raising interest rates to maybe QT or just holding rates steady, which would be allowing that balance sheet to even expand. But I think September, we're really going to see some pain here, but that's going to set up massive opportunities going into the tail end of the second half of the year, that I think. Michael Anthony says, Tom, I noticed no assets is safe this year and charts aren't working any longer. Yeah, well, the thing is, in a bear market, the trend is your friend, right? So a lot of times, what I say, if you look back at all the studies, and William J. O'Neill and O'Neill Securities did a very, very large study, and they found that during bear markets, or even during bull markets, 8 out of 10 stocks tend to follow the overall trajectory of the market. Okay, so if the trend is down, if the major indices are down, like the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and the S&P 500, if the indices are down, well, it's going to be very, very hard, even for the best stocks that have the best fundamentals, to sort of fight that trend, right? So there's an old saying on Wall Street that it's very difficult for a trout to swim upstream. So if you're trying to go long stocks here, if you're trying to buy stocks when the overall market is in a downtrend, well, don't be surprised if you don't make too much upward progress, because it's very hard to kick the trend, right? If overall indices, if 9 out of 10 S&P 500 sectors are in the red for the month, well, it's going to be very hard for one individual stock to buck that trend. So what I would say is just try to be a trend follower, and I think we have to pay attention to what Stanley Druckenmiller, Paul Tudor Jones, as well as Ray Dalio always says, and that is quite simply not to fight the Fed, or don't fight the Fed. Hey, Vonda Howard is here. Says, hey Tom, everybody, good to see you, Vonda. Beautiful Tesla here, love that. The white Teslas actually don't look too bad. Actually look kind of nice. Khan says, hey Tom, invest in yourself first, stop spending and pay off your debts. Yeah, I agree with that 100%, especially during recessionary times, right? Especially during recessionary times. I agree. British Grace, Tom, I think the CPI number is going to be 8.6 for next month. So British Gray, to piggyback off of your comment there, did anybody see the research that came out from Fundstrat today? So Fundstrat is a equity research firm right here in New York that it was, the founder is Tom Lee, or Thomas Lee. And I respect Tom Lee a great deal. I think he's a smart guy, he's a sharp guy. He tends to take a lot of heat, but anytime you make bold calls or predictions on Wall Street and something doesn't go your way, you're gonna take some heat. But I respect Tom Lee, I like Tom Lee. So anyway, he came out with some news today from the data that he's run that said many of the components that make up the CPI are falling off a cliff. And that's true. However, if you notice the tweet he posted, if you guys want to see it, I think I actually retweeted it. If you follow at Walks Wall Street on Twitter, if you look at Fundstrat, or at Fundstrat at Tom Lee, he posted it there. And a lot of it was like in the food and energy categories, right? So you're seeing a lot of commodities come down. I think we're in a commodity bust cycle. But the Federal Reserve doesn't really care about that. The Federal Reserve is looking at shelter. The Federal Reserve is looking at wage pressures. And so long as wage pressures continue to go up, and so long as the prices of rent continues to go up, the Fed is going to be pedal to the metal with raising interest rates and quantitative tightening. Hey, Ed T, good to see you. Says, I was seeing a charcoal color Tesla like the one you like yesterday, very nice color. Yeah, those are very nice too, Ed. I like that color, the charcoal. It's sort of like a grayish, not too black. I kind of like it, I agree. Mike C says, Tom Lee is a bit of a permabull. Yeah, he definitely does get that. He definitely does sort of get that reputation, right, as being quote unquote permabull. But if you really think about it, about 70% of the time the market is going up. Right? I mean, about 70% of the time the market is going up. But I see what you're saying. Sandy Stewart is here. This is Changing World Order. So that is the title of Ray Dalio's recent book. If you guys haven't read that book, I would definitely suggest you do. It's a fantastic book. Hey, Sonia C is here. Says, hey all, good to see you, Sonia C. Two Barnacles is here. Welcome, welcome. So we've made it to Madison Avenue and 57th Street. This is Billionaires Row. So just to go into some of the statistics coming out of Okta's earnings report, Revenue is growing at about 46% CAGR from about fiscal year 2020 through fiscal year 2023. So CAGR is an acronym that stands for Compounded Annualized Growth Rate. Okta claims that it has an $80 billion TAM to sell into. So if you have revenue of about $2 billion for the fiscal year, but you have an $80 billion TAM, well, there's a lot of runway there. There's a lot of meat on the bone, as they say. So I think we need to make the distinction as investors between, yes, is this a good company? Do they sell a good product? And valuation. And the reason why I say that is, and I think Orlando Bravo has put this best, and Orlando Bravo is the founder of Thoma Bravo, which is a very, very successful private equity firm that actually just took Ping Identity private. He says that in an era of normalizing rates, companies are going to need to start to care about profitability. And Wall Street is not going to accept top-line revenue growth at all costs anymore. It's the exact same thing that sort of happened to Adam Neumann and WeWork, right? So maybe as a private company, when you had huge capital injections from SoftBank and the like into WeWorks, Masa Son's famous saying is, growth at all costs, domination, just gain market share. But when you're a publicly traded company, that model doesn't work too well with Wall Street, right? So hence the valuation getting cut by 80%. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So even though a lot of the stocks we talk about on the stream, like CrowdStrike, like Okta, yeah, they have a good product and they're in a big expanding total addressable market, but some of the companies that don't post any earnings, you should stay away from in an environment like this, when interest rates are going up, when interest rates are rising. So just something to be cognizant of there. Hey, Yiji Kim says hello from South Korea. Annyeonghaseyo. Good to see you. Welcome. Thank you all of our viewers from South Korea. Dan Zhang says, hey Tom, I saw PayPal was upgraded to buy today. Any thoughts on that? No real thoughts on that. I mean, bankers upgrade and downgrade stocks all the time. Here's the thing. PayPal has been pummeled into the ground. So we're outside of the Trump Tower, by the way. This is the main Trump Tower on 5th Avenue. Here's the thing about PayPal, right, and a lot of these other stocks. And here's another thing that I'm very concerned about. A lot of these former leaders, right, a lot of these former leaders are now, let's just say, down 70 to 80%. And if you look throughout history, very seldom does a stock that was down 70 or 80% during the next bull cycle turn into the new true market leaders. So I think there needs to be new merchandise emerge on the market here. So a lot of people are trying to bottom fish a lot of these names that have been gotten hammered, right? So you talk about the Zooms, the PayPals, the Atlassians, the Teladocs, all of the former leaders of the market that have gotten hammered. And very seldom do these stocks ever come back. Usually when a new bull market starts, it'll be very, very clear what the new leaders are. So I would just be very cognizant of that. I'd be very, very careful to bottom fish those particular names, like the Pelotons, the Zooms, because those will probably never see all-time highs again. Check out this horse and buggy here. We are outside of the Trump Tower on 5th Avenue. Yeah, Dan Zhang's like, talk about stocks getting hammered, like Beyond Meat. Yeah, all of those. So a little bit off topic here, guys. What are your thoughts about the horses here? There's been a big controversy here in New York about should horses be allowed to ride around. I think just 2 weeks ago, one of these horses I'm not gonna say accidentally, unfortunately, had like a heat stroke and I think died on the street during that massive heat wave. So I don't know, it's been a big controversy, these horses and buggies, but what do you guys think? Should they be allowed here? Hey, Just the Guy says, hey Tom, thanks for the stream. What are your thoughts on the US restricting chip sales to China? AMD. So I think Nvidia dropped like a rock. However, I think AMD had their best quarterly revenue ever. So I was looking on Twitter and there's a lot of controversy around that because some Congress members, I won't name their names because not to flip out, have the chat freak out, but there was some people in Congress that made some very interesting and well-timed sales of Nvidia and other semiconductor companies before they made the announcement that they are not allowed to sell chips into China anymore. So, do you think that's insider trading? Or do you think it's a coincidence? I don't know. I think you guys know what I think. But definitely gonna put pressure on those names, for sure. This is the Louis Vuitton building. Very unique here in New York. Hey, Zane is here, welcome. Yeah, Two Wheel Freedoms is insider trading all the way. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that the American populace can agree on, right? Is that if you are a member of Congress, you should not be able to buy individual stocks. That's just my opinion, though. Everybody can have their own. Hey, TMB says, keep the horses and buggies, treat animals humanely. Donna L says, hey, from Northeast Ohio, good to see you. Donna, welcome. Elizabeth, what's up? Says, hey, Tom, how's it going? Everything's going good. It was a busy day at work. It was kind of crazy, you know, especially for anybody in sales here. The last day of the month is always a massive scramble. So a lot of the clients that I work with and even some account executives that I work with at other companies that are trying to get deals done, everything pretty much came down to the wire. I actually thought I wasn't going to be able to leave the office on time to stream. That's how busy it got, but here we are. Hopefully everybody had a good day as well. Hey, Miss Brown Eyes, what's up? Good to see you, Miss Brown Eyes. Thank you for joining tonight. Hopefully you had a fantastic first half of the week. Already Thursday tomorrow. Already Thursday. Hey, Taxi Cab says, hey Tom, that IBM is where Steve Jobs put up his middle finger above his head on the IBM sign. Is it really? I didn't know that. You know, funny enough, I actually just got an email, well, not an email, sort of one of those LinkedIn outreach messages from an IBM recruiter. I'm probably not going to entertain it. I may just take the call to see what it's all about. Cora Carpenter's here, welcome. Good to see you. Hey, Billy. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, there did seem to be some very well-timed sales of semiconductor stocks. So, I don't know. I think it's a little bit of insider trading on both the Republican and the Democrats, so not to single anybody out. All right, everybody. So really quick, we talked about Okta. So you guys know that every time when we cover a specific company, I always give you guys the link to the investor deck. So if you type Okta, O-K-T-A in the chat, the Nightbot will drop the link to the investor deck, okay? So here's what I like to look for, and I think you guys know this by now because we go over it every time we pick out a specific company, but especially in regards to SaaS companies that operate on a software as a service model, you really want to see a lot of progress in the deal flow or the deal size in excess of 100,000 ARR. So ARR is an acronym that stands for annual recurring revenue. So the theory behind that is, if you have enterprise customers, which could be large Fortune 500 customers, that are willing and able to spend $100,000 annually or more, right? There's also millionaire customer categories. That's proof of concept right there. So if anybody here is in enterprise tech sales, what you'll notice, or what you've probably already noticed, is that as you're selling into the enterprise, the sales cycles are not a month. They're not 2 months, okay? Many times, there's been deals that I've been working on for 2 years, right? Depending on when customers go out of contract, depending on all of the legalese, it has to go through HR, you have to get buy-in from IT, you have to get buy-in from legal. So these sales cycles tend to be extremely, extremely elongated. So what is my point on that? Well, the point is, when a very large Fortune 500 company makes a decision on a particular piece of software to use, whether it's a CRM, whether it's a cybersecurity piece of software, they do extreme diligence, almost to the point of ad nauseum, they do diligence. So the theory there is, as you grow your new logos or your logo parade in the enterprise, more credibility is going to be built in the marketplace for you to leverage to win even more deals, okay? So if we look at Okta's earnings report, total customers over 100,000 ARR grew 35% year over year, and Okta now has 3,525 customers billing over $100,000. So pretty good progress. Obviously needs to work on profitability. The stock got clocked after hours, but I just thought you guys need to be cognizant of that. If you look straight ahead, this is the beautiful Plaza Hotel. This is on the corner of 59th Street, Central Park South, and 5th Avenue. Very expensive hotel, by the way. And then this is the flagship Apple store here. Yeah, Gregory's like, someone's in their apartment today at the Steinway building. We'll take a walk through there too. Hey, Michelle K is here. Good to see you, Michelle. This is good evening, Tom and everybody. Welcome, welcome. Destructionist is here. Says, man, New York just has that thing. Good to see you, Destructionist. Yeah, it's a pretty nice night out tonight. Check out this dog here, beautiful dog. So one of the cool things about this Apple store is, check this out, guys. If you go like this, you could actually see all the shoppers here. Okay, maybe this one wasn't a good example. We'll go over to the next one. So if you look in these things, you could actually see all the shoppers here. There's one. Yeah, but these are sort of like little portals into the Apple store, which is kind of cool. Warwalker. Hey, Just Hearts NYC, good to see you, welcome. Wow, Rare Bear says, Tom, I believe my grandparents got married at the Plaza Hotel. Wow, that's beautiful. You know, imagine how much it costs nowadays if you want to have like a big event or get married at the Plaza Hotel or something like that now. How much do you think that costs? Probably a lot. Michael Anthony says Okta has lots of debt with insiders, isn't helping the company selling shares. This is Michael. Yeah, I mean, I think Okta has a good product, right? But, you know, Michael, to your point, as the Federal Reserve has clearly stated now, oh, look at this traffic jam we got, a lot of traffic now. It's all about profitability. So if people are trying to bottom fish these names that aren't profitable, I think there's still some downside here. So I think patience is key. Wendy England is joining us. This is the average 100-person wedding here is around $30,000. So I'm trying to figure that out. 100-person wedding for 30 grand. Is that standard? I think it could probably vary or have a greater variance depending on where it is. I would say if you had your wedding at the Plaza Hotel, I wouldn't be surprised if it got up into the 6 figures. Is that crazy to say? What do you guys think? Hey Billy says, hey Tom, how hard would it be to get into tech sales career change with no prior experience or degree? You could do it. You can absolutely do it. Now, are you going to jump right into an account executive? Probably not. Are you going to jump right into enterprise account executive? Absolutely not. However, companies will hire you as a sales development representative, or a BDR, which stands for business development representative, right? So what I think I'm going to do, Billy, is share best practices in the newsletter about anybody that's interested in getting into tech sales or software sales, how I could help with that. But companies will definitely take a chance on you, especially now that, we just got the JOLTS report yesterday. We covered that on last night's stream. And there's about 11 million job openings in America. And there's about 5.2 million Americans in the talent pool. Okay, so there's almost 2 jobs available for every 1 person in America looking for work. And as we just heard on Okta's earnings call, they've seen huge attrition, right? And Okta pays their employees very well, especially at the enterprise level. So I think if you apply as an entry-level SDR or BDR, and you just gear your resume towards, you're good with persuasion, maybe at your previous company you weren't directly involved in sales, but sort of frame the resume that, you're a very persuasive person, you've come up with very creative ideas and how to drive revenue or drive top line for your company, and I think you shouldn't have a problem. I would just start applying to BDR positions. So everybody, this is the Plaza Hotel Residences. So many people think that the Plaza is only exclusive hotel, but it's actually residences too. So you can actually buy condominiums, apartments here. And the architecture, the design, the facade of this place is absolutely fantastic. Dr. Longus is very true. Good to see you, Dr. Longus. Oh, Billy says, I'm a real estate agent, so I know how to cold call, but many want a career change to do real estate part-time. Oh, so you're in sales, dude. Real estate. If you're a real estate agent, you're a salesperson, okay? So you should have no issue maybe even applying to an account executive position. Now, I will say this, it depends on what type of software you're selling. So let's say, for example, you're selling, let's say if you're selling like alerting or monitoring software, like a Datadog or something like that, you're probably going to need you're going to need some technical experience and technical acumen, especially if you're selling like AWS, or you're selling Azure Cloud or Google Cloud. You're probably going to need some technical chops there. However, let's say if you're selling traditional telecom, you're probably not going to need as much technical chops as if you're selling, maybe a CRM tool where you need API integration into 20 million different other pieces of software, right? So I think it just depends on what you're applying for. But Billy, you know what? Send me an email. Let me take a look at your resume and I'll try to frame it in the correct way, okay? But what I would start thinking about is what type of software do you want to sell? Or hardware. Maybe you want to sell hardware, right? And then I would do a lot of research into that specifically. So let's say if you wanted to apply to Okta, right? So Okta specializes in a particular form of cybersecurity that's considered IAM. And that acronym stands for Identity and Access Management. Let's say if you wanted to sell, MDM products or endpoint security software, well then you could apply to like a CrowdStrike or a Zscaler or something like that. where you sell software licenses on mobile phones, on laptops, computers to secure endpoints. I think that's a good way to start. Billy says, appreciate the information, Tom. No problem, Billy. I appreciate you being here. So this is the Trump Park building, which is 106 Central Park South. Zay Batata is here, welcome. Christian Wilson. Ren's CPI data is down, hashtag Switzerland, good to see you. Jose says, good evening, welcome. Cindy Foley, the one and only, says, hey Tom, love the Plaza Hotel. Thanks for stopping there. Cindy, welcome. Hopefully you're having a good Wednesday. We are back at the old stomping grounds, my friends. This is Central Park South, 59th Street. But if you guys are enjoying the stream, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We usually do these live streams about 5 days a week between New York City and Miami. S-Piece is also known as SDR. Yeah, so SDR stands for Sales Development Representative. And BDR and SDR are pretty much the same thing. Pretty much the same thing. Here's a quick tip for everybody. Here's a quick tip. If you can, I would try to skip the SDR and BDR positions in its of entirety. I would try to shoot right for account executive. That's what I did. And it can be done, but you have to know how to interview very well. And I'll give you guys, we'll just cut to the chase of this part of the live stream. And I have a particular interview that I want to share with you guys that I think is going to be very, very informative and help you guys, not only if you want to be in sales, but if you want to better increase your public speaking abilities, better increase your communication skills, okay? So if you type !we, W-E in the chat, it's going to drop a link to an interview that Andrew Ross Sorkin conducted with Adam Newman. This was about 9 months ago, and it was the first public interview with Adam Newman after this whole WeWork debacle went down. So we're going to talk about that interview and just why I think it's so good in just a minute. We'll do a deep dive. Ren says New York is a great area to live, I'd say. I would agree. I would agree. Yeah, Michelle K is like, such a nice evening, finally not as hot as it was. I agree with that. I could definitely feel the fall in the air. It's not too humid, it's not bad. I mean, even today it was a little bit hot, but there was no humidity today, which was really nice. Hey, Brain, XTC. Says New York City looks beautiful, thank you so much. Just Hearts New York City says, I appreciate your info on Glassdoor last night. Found it very informative. Hey, well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. That's the purpose of the stream. We try to share ideas. So Glassdoor is a really good resource if you're trying to stay competitive with your salary, right? So let's say if you've got a job or you're in final stages of negotiation, I would really try to leverage Glassdoor to see what other people at that company are getting for their particular salary. I think you'd find that quite helpful. All right, team, so we are outside of the JW Marriott Essex House. This is a very, very famous hotel right on New York City's Central Park South, very close to Columbus Circle. These two big buildings in the distance here, this is actually called the Deutsche Bank Tower. However, they were formerly known as the Time Warner Center. But this is a beautiful hotel. It's a little bit of an older side, on the older side of a hotel, but it's absolutely beautiful here. Jay Sully says, why do ADRs BS STR? SDR, more cold calling, etc.? Jay Sully, could you rephrase that question? I'm Not sure what you mean, but I will answer. I just need it a little bit reframed. So this is the inside. This is the lobby of the JW Marriott Essex House. This is a fantastic. Jay Sully says account executive versus an SDR. Yeah, so we'll talk about that. I could explain that really quick. I think that's a great question, by the way. So the hierarchy of a sales org at a software company or even at a general company, I could speak from the software and the telecom side because that's where my background is, but a sales development representative, your job is to either make outbound cold calls, outbound emails in order to set appointments for the account executives, okay? So an account executive has a little bit more sales acumen. They can give decks. You know, if you're an account executive, you're a closer, right? So you're going out to businesses, giving presentations to help close deals, right? So you are actually negotiating those deals to closure. As a BDR or an SDR, you're not closing deals. You are essentially generating funnel or generating pipeline for the account executives to go out, pitch, and close deals for clients. So hopefully that makes sense. So this is Billionaires Row, everybody. You can see the beautiful Central Park Tower. It's one of my favorite buildings on Billionaires Row. And the building with the gold top is 220 Central Park South. And that's actually Ken Griffin from Citadel Security, I believe, has a particular unit in that building. This is one of my favorite parts in New York. Borat says used to do sales call, wasn't that good at it. Yeah, I mean, look, sales isn't for everybody, and that's fine, right? That's fine. People have different strengths and weaknesses and everything, so no big deal. Hey, Valentina is here. Says, hey, Tom, hope you had a good day. I did. So, Valentina, my day was crazy because last day of the month, right? So, last day of the month, a lot of last minute deals. You know, anybody who's in sales in the chat could attest to this. Last day of the month is crazy, but here's an even crazier day in sales, okay? Once you start to sell into the enterprise, so as an enterprise account executive, the craziest times of year is the last day of the month and the last day of the quarter. That's crazy. That's really crazy. Hey, Deborah S. is here, welcome. Hey, Jay Sully says, I've been a telecom AE for 10 plus years. Makes sense, thanks, man. Hey, Jay Sully, awesome. Yeah, I have a lot of friends that are, you know, EAEs for T-Mobile, Verizon. That's also a very, very good career path, very lucrative career path as well. You know, what was really lucrative on the telecom side were the old legacy wireline reps, right? Because when you're selling wireline, those are big, big contracts. Okay, let us talk about that Adam Newman interview. But before we talk about that, I just want to set an expectation here with the chat. I'll show you guys the Trump International Hotel and Tower right here. I understand that Adam Newman has a very, very controversial past. I understand that many people think that he defrauded people, allegedly. I get that. Okay, I understand and I appreciate that, and I'm actually very sensitive to that. However, I think, as in anything, we could learn something from everybody. So, I was having a particular conversation with one of my good buddies. One of my good friends is in venture capital at a pretty notable firm. And we were laughing how Adam Newman was able to get a $350 million check from Andreessen Horowitz, or A16Z, however you want to call them. And my friend was like, you know, I just cannot believe how Adam Newman was able to persuade Andreessen Horowitz into writing them a $350 million check after all the craziness that came out after WeWork. Okay, so Andreessen Horowitz wrote Adam Newman a check for $350 million for his new startup called Flow, which is actually kind of very similar to WeWork, by the way. But instead of being on the commercial side, it's more on the residential side for like housing, where people live, not really where they work. So I was watching a particular interview with Andrew Ross Sorkin and Adam Newman. And as I was watching that interview, and I've actually met Adam Newman in person, he was in the office. This was about 2 years ago when they were doing the whole SoftBank debacle. And I didn't know him personally. I just said, hey, how you doing, Adam? Good to see you. But watch that interview, and if anybody is interested in sales or how to become a better public speaker, you could, like, the one comment to my friend after he told me, he's like, I couldn't believe that Adam Newman raised $350 million. The first thing out of my mouth was, I couldn't believe that he didn't get a check for $800 million. I mean, that guy is the master of framing, of conviction selling. It was almost like a spectacle he put on. Because you got to understand something. This was the first interview that he did after the whole WeWork debacle. So he knew coming in there that Andrew Ross Sorkin was going to come at him with every single hard question possible, right? They were going to try to nail him every which way. They were going to try to make him look like a fool. But the way that Adam Newman was able to control the conversation, reframe it, and explain himself it was almost like it wasn't even real. At times within the interview, it felt like Andrew Ross Sorkin was actually coming off as uninformed on a lot of this stuff. And maybe what we'll do is I'll give you guys some time to watch the interview. So if you type WE in the chat, the Nightbot is going to drop the link to that particular interview from the New York Times, Andrew Ross Sorkin, Adam Newman, and study it. Study his tonality, study his body language, study when Adam Newman is getting asked really, really hard questions. Does he react all frazzled? Is he fidgeting in his chair? Or is he taking long pauses, keeping composure, and talking in a very steady, normal tone and explaining exactly what went on and actually reframing those questions? So sales is really all about framing. It's how you frame the sale, how you explain things to people. And this was just, this interview should probably be studied in like Harvard Business School, because Adam Newman was able to get Andrew Ross Sorkin almost a little bit frazzled. And Andrew Ross Sorkin was sitting up in his chair, he was talking really fast, but Adam Newman totally kept his composure, broke down every single question in maximum detail, and flipped the interview on its head and almost made it seem like Andrew Ross Sorkin just wasn't prepared for the interview. It was just a complete spectacle. I was blown away, absolutely blown away. Yeah, Paul Meddes is like the plot thickens. But yeah, check that out. Again, I understand that he's a controversial guy, but maybe you're in college, you're taking a public speaking class, you want to be a better communicator. I would study the interview. I would study his speech patterns, the way he talks, the way he commands an audience. And that is like textbook sales framing, textbook communication, phenomenal. Hey, Jeff277, welcome. Good to see you, Jeff. Hey, David, says Tom, I'm moving into my condo in Cocoa Beach this weekend, officially starting work at SpaceX, Cape Canaveral on Tuesday. Dude, congratulations, man. That is no easy task to land a job like that, so amazing, congratulations, I'm happy for you. Man, working at SpaceX, you're gonna have to give us some insights, David. Hey, Alejandro says, you will love the We Crashed, Jared Leto portrays him well. Yeah, so I haven't watched We Crashed, but I think I'm gonna get around to watching it. I'm definitely gonna watch it, 100%. So check out the skyline here, everybody, of Billionaires Row. You could see the Central Park Tower, as well as 220 Central Park South, 157 the Steinway Building, and 432 Park Avenue. Alejandro says it's really good. Dude, I gotta watch it, man. Thank you for the recommendation. I'm gonna watch it 100%. Hey, Bagels and Walks, says Tom, since you like Becco Cafe, or since you like Becco, try Cafe Fiorello across from Lincoln Center. I have been there. It's not bad. I actually like it. It's not bad. Yeah, Borat's like, he must have read How to Win Friends and Influence People like 1,000 times. Yeah, I think the thing about sales, it's not, I think the main thing a lot of people get wrong about sales is they think the best salespeople are the most energetic, in your face, and they make 1,000 million cold calls. It's not that. It's the people who come off as they know what they're talking about. Okay, strong tonality. They understand how to break down core concepts in very, very simplistic ways for the masses to understand. Right? In my opinion, the best public speakers and the best salespeople are the individuals that can take a very complex subject and frame it in a way where it's like, wow, that was like the simplest explanation possible. This guy knows what he's talking about, or this girl knows what she's talking about. I think those are the best salespeople, and they come off. It's just, you know it. I don't really know how to explain it, but you know when you're talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about. Hey, GX72 says, Tom, what is the name of this area? So this is Columbus Circle. We are Broadway, Columbus Circle right now. JP says, were you just talking about the interview with the CEO of WeWork? I was. Yeah, so if you type !we, you'll be able to see that interview. It's a very good interview. And Andrew Ross Sorkin is a really good journalist, very, very good interviewer. All right, everybody, so we are outside the Deutsche Bank Towers, formerly known as the Time Warner Center. I think I liked it better when it was called the Time Warner Center, but I think Deutsche Bank has now moved or migrated from, I think their address was 62 Wall Street, and now they're here, Columbus Circle. Definitely a more modern building than the one they were in before, for sure. Hey Jason, good to see you. Yeah, Wendy England says, everything in life is a sale, really selling your opinion, selling yourself, selling what you like, to see changes, not just something tangible. I think that's a pretty good way to put it. Hey, Do is here, says Tom, I agree. The mark of a genius is explaining big concepts with little words. Yeah, I mean, the best salespeople that I know that are the top of the list all the time in terms of making their numbers, they give off a confidence, and they just know what they're talking about. They're very well informed people. Hey, Christian Wilson is here. Says, I think he's a con man, but I might watch a few minutes of it before it annoys me. Yeah, and again, so Christian Wilson, to be honest, before I started talking about this, I acknowledge that, right? A lot of people think that Adam Neumann is, a con man. A lot of people that think Adam Neumann defrauded investors. And that's sort of my point, right? I understand all of those concepts. I do. But the reason why we were talking about it, Christian, tonight is because Andreessen Horowitz wrote Adam Neumann a check for $350 million, even after all of that WeWork debacle nonsense. for his new startup called Flow. So one of my good buddies who works at a very notable VC firm, he was telling me, he's like, Tom, he's like, can you believe that Andreessen Horowitz, or A16Z, wrote this guy a check for 350 mil after all of that craziness, after all of that nonsense that went on? And as I've been, watching some interviews of Adam Neumann, and I actually met him in person one time. I didn't have a conversation with him, I just shook his hand. He was in the office at 1166. The first comment out of my mouth was, I'm surprised he didn't raise $500 million. I'm surprised he didn't get 500 to 800 million. I mean, the guy is a freaking master of persuasion, right? And I'm not saying that's good or that's bad. All I'm saying is that Adam Neumann knows how to raise money. Okay, he's a salesperson. Whether we think that he defrauded investors, there was allegations that he would go out on these ragers, smoking weed, buying private jets. I get that, and that may have well happened. But I think just from a standpoint of a public communicator and a persuader, you can't get better. You can't. Christian Wilson says he has talent, no question, and probably an ability to control weak people, but it just annoys people who are more intelligent than that. Well, I mean, you can't get more intelligent than Masa's son, who's started SoftBank from scratch. You can't get more intelligent than A16Z or Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most successful funds out there. The point with you, Christian, that he's a very controversial guy, but you could see why he's good at raising money. I mean, if you listen to that interview, you're like, oh yeah, absolutely. This guy could easily, be in banking, go around raising a bunch of money. So the point I was trying to make, I could see how he could raise all that money. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest, but I think he makes some good points. Zabatata says he knows how to burn money too. He's the unicorn. Yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he did, I get it. It's just it's ridiculous. I mean, you guys saw the WeWork documentary. It was nuts. I didn't see it, but I know about it. But hey, John says, hey Tom, how are you tonight? I'm doing good, John. I hope you are well too. Always a pleasure to see you. Yeah, Palmetti's is the WeWork stock is garbage. Yeah, and I get that, I understand all that, and here's the funny thing. So we'll touch on WeWork for a second, and then we'll cut off to a different subject. But here's the funny thing. COVID-19 may have saved WeWork. Isn't that interesting? COVID-19 might have very well saved WeWork as a company, because do you really think that a lot of large organizations out there, or even startups, are going to spend money on 36-month leases anymore? No way. I mean, if they're all working in a hybrid work environment, the WeWork style business model works perfectly. So it's sort of interesting how this all played out, right? If you have your employees only coming into the office 2 days a week, well, why would you sign a 36-month lease or a multi-year lease? Why wouldn't you just get a WeWork? People go in there when they want, people leave when they want. So it may have just worked out perfectly for them. Who knows? Hey, John is just joining in. Good to see you, John. So we are coming from Columbus Circle, 59th Street. We walked down Broadway, but now we are approaching the Manhattan Club, where we will walk down almost all the way to the Barclays building, or the Barclays Investment Bank. Okay, so this is One of my favorite buildings in the city. This is the one, the only, Carnegie Hall. The only thing is that there's scaffolding here. Christian Wilson says, this is what I like about the stream. Tom gets me thinking. I appreciate that. You know, it's a bummer that all the nice buildings in New York right now pretty much all have scaffolding here. Zay Batata says, hey Tom, you're right, at least for the big cities. Old WeWork was structured to conquer the world, but they might survive if the downsize to the really big cities. Yeah, that's sort of what I'm getting at. This pandemic could almost inadvertently have saved WeWork, which is actually kind of interesting to think about. Hey, For You says, hey Tom, did you know Andreessen Horowitz was an early investor in Ripple? I think I did hear about that. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to turn out. So I know Gary Gensler, head of the SEC, really has it out for Ripple, but yeah, Christian Wilson says, good conversation is so priceless, it's hard to find these days. I agree with that 100%, and I appreciate you here. Best Bets TV says, are you allowed to speak about Andrew Tate? I have no interest in even talking about that guy. I saw like a couple things, clips. That's just a person that I don't even really want to just waste my breath on. It's just not, I'm just not interested, just to be quite honest, if I'm being honest with you. Hey, Just Hearts New York City says, I went to a concert in Carnegie Hall. One's well worth the tickets. The acoustics in the place are unique. You know, the only time that I've seen a concert or a type of performance at Carnegie Hall was when there was the very famous blackout, I think in 2019. I think this was on a Saturday and I was working late on the weekend. I was in the office. I was about to step in the elevator. I was about to step in the elevator and then boom, everything blacks out. So I walked down the stairs and I noticed that almost every single light, or the whole city, north of 34th Street is totally out of power. So I walk up to Columbus Circle, past the Carnegie Hall, and all the performers at Carnegie Hall set up shop outside on the street and continued their performance. It was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen in my life. It was really, really unique, really, really cool to see. So everybody was actually playing their instruments and doing all that stuff in Carnegie Hall, or outside of Carnegie Hall, which was fantastic. Very cool to see. Yeah, Marcy's like, so glad you didn't get in the elevator, I know. Same here. Yeah, Jones, like New York City scaffolding is kind of like a decoration. I agree. Two Harbors is, Tom, what stocks are hot in the market at this time? I think cash is probably the best idea, right? You know, another thing that I wanted to cover briefly is last night or yesterday we heard from another Fed president, this time out of New York. So we heard from Fed President John Williams, and he said that combating high inflation is likely to require lifting the central bank's short-term interest rate to about 3.5% and holding it there for well over a year. So I think that pretty much kills the narrative that the Fed's going to pivot. And if we revert back to Stanley Druckenmiller, if we revert back to Paul Tudor Jones, what do they all say? Even Ray Dalio, don't fight the Fed, which essentially is you shouldn't really be buying or trying to go long any particular names here as the Fed is tightening monetary policy. And the reaction to earnings have been horrible, right? Just look at Okta. Okta reported an okay quarter. Obviously, they're still losing money, but they beat on both the top and the bottom line. They beat on both the top and the bottom line, but they still got clocked after hours. Paul Meddes is like good advice. I think inflation is going to come down. Somebody's like, do I think inflation is going to come down over the next few months? I think it's very possible, but I think the core inflation is going to continue to stay elevated. But headline CPI is probably going to roll over quite a bit. So core inflation excludes very volatile food and energy. So I think you're going to continue to see. I think you're going to continue to see a lot of. Hold on, there's somebody across here. There's sort of like this truck in the bike lane, half in and out. Yeah, Jeff, you're 100% right. Okta is cybersecurity stock. They specialize in identity and access management, so IAM cybersecurity. So yeah, to answer your question, I think you're going to see headline inflation roll over and come down. But I think it's going to be very difficult for core CPI. The main thing the Fed is looking for, and this is what they telegraphed to us, they said the main thing that they're looking for right now is for rent prices to come down, so shelter costs, which is 33% of the CPI. And they want to see wage pressures come down. And I don't think wage pressures are going to come down anytime soon, everybody, because, you know, yesterday we got the JOLTS report out. And the JOLTS report said that there was more job openings than expected. I think there's 11 million job openings in the United States now. And there's only about 5, maybe 5.5 million people looking for work. Crazy. Hey, Mike is here. Good to see you. This is how's Rosie O'Grady's. Has anybody been? I have not been. I am not familiar. Wendy England says, Tom, Bed Bath & Beyond started to lay off and closing stores as well. You know, I did see that come across the Bloomberg today. Maybe we'll turn here by the BNP Paribas. Yeah, but it seems like everybody's trying to batten down the hatches as we prepare for a recession. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is why I never got those meme stock people. Like, I don't understand it. This is a dying business. And I'm not saying that to be mean, to pick on Bed Bath & Beyond. But I mean, seriously, guys, I mean, everybody orders online. You know, we've transitioned to e-commerce. You know, this isn't 1995. I mean, why would I invest my money into Bed Bath & Beyond when it's essentially just a dying business? I don't know. That's sort of my thoughts on it, but Irish Lewis says nobody wants to work with a low-wage job. Perhaps. But, you know, Iris, you know, what we were just talking about out of Okta's earnings report is that they're seeing high attrition for enterprise account executives. And enterprise account executives make a lot of money. I mean, you know, at Okta, if you're just doing your job, you'll probably make $200,000, right? And even they're seeing extreme attrition, which is, you know, put pressure on a lot of their, you know, pipeline for their deal flow. Hey, Dee says, Tom, are you saying the brick and mortar stores are a dying business? I am, yeah. Well, what do you think? What do you guys think? Dan Zhang says, Tom, after watching your stream for a few months, makes me want to switch career from an actuary to tech sales. I really don't want to stare at Excel spreadsheets anymore. Yeah, well, I mean, I think it just depends on, like, do you think that you're going to like it? Because it's a very demanding job, right? And, you know, sales is sales. So you're going to, I think you will perform very well in sales, Dan, if you come to terms that you're going to hear the word no all the time and you just become desensitized to it, right? Because this is sort of how I frame it in my head. So I try to sell myself to try to sort of like keep my spirits up in a way. My job is not to convince people to buy my product or service. My job is to go out there and try to find the people who are already in the marketplace or maybe looking into buying my product or service or competitors. And if you frame it like that, so this is Radio City Music Hall, by the way, for everybody watching. Because if you frame it like that, you're never going to be the annoying salesperson that cold calls somebody and hammers them and you give a bad impression. Oh, look at the dirt bike guys coming over. Wow, a lot of dirt bikes and ATVs. So anyway, so Dan, this is how I sort of think about it, right? I think about it as my job as a salesperson is to call into businesses that I believe are going to need my product or service. So if somebody tells me up front, yeah, we're not in the market or we're not interested in the product, I take them off the list. The economy is so big. I think people underestimate just how massive the US economy is. There are businesses and there are people right now, no matter if it's a recession or an economic boom, that are going to be looking for your product or service, that are in the market for it, that are probably already going to buy it, or they're on the fence about it. Your job as a salesperson is to identify those people and then act as their consultant to help them to deploy that particular enterprise software within their business. Right, and I can guarantee you, if you're prospecting enough and you're filling up your pipeline and your funnel, you're gonna, let's say send out, thousands of emails, or you're gonna make your calls. And as you build your book of business, what's gonna happen is maybe about 5 to 7 years into your sales career, you're gonna have a lot of your business come from referrals, right, or a run rate on your existing accounts. So I don't know, that's sort of what worked for me. That's how I would sort of think about it. But don't be the person who hammers on a prospect when they've already exclusively said, hey, we're not in the market for this right now, maybe circle back in a year, because there's enough business out there. I promise you, the economy is massive. There's enough opportunity in business out there where you're going to call somebody or you're going to email somebody and they're going to respond back, perfect, let's set up a meeting at 2 p.m. on Thursday. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe you emailed me. We were looking into a particular software solution like this, let's chat. You'd be surprised. Now, I'm not saying be an order taker, because your job as a salesperson, again, what did we talk about before, is framing, okay? And to be able to explain your product or service very direct, in a clear, concise way where customers can understand, and come off as you're sharp and you've done this before, right? Especially if you're vertical specific. So that's sort of what I would say. Hey, Bagels and Walks is here. Good to see you. Always a pleasure, Bagels and Walks. How was your Wednesday? Hopefully you had a good middle of the week. Dan Zhang says, I know it's never too late to start doing anything new, but do you think it's too late to switch careers at 28? Dude, 28? That's like your little kid, man. 28, you could do anything you want. I mean, just think about it. 28, you could probably go, if you wanted to, you could probably go back to college, complete a whole new major, and then just go into another thing. I think you get what I'm saying. I'm not saying go back to college and do that, but I'm just saying that's how much time you have. I mean, you're in your, mid to late 20s. That's nothing, man. 28, that's you could go into a new industry and crush it, man. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Dusty calls like 28 is like a baby. Yeah, Mike says I'm 33 and still switching. All right, so we are coming up on the one and only Rockefeller Center. Hey, Jeff is like, Tom, I'm 48 and trying to get my master's. Awesome, dude. Well, congratulations to you. That's fantastic. Love that. Hey, Borat says, I'm 28 and just starting to learn web development. Well, I think that's a fantastic place to start, right? Because here's what I'll say. There's so many free resources online that it's like ridiculous. Like the opportunity is endless. You could literally go online, teach yourself how to code, teach yourself Python, JavaScript, C++, whatever language you want. If you put in the time, you could do it. Right? If you put in the time, you can 100% teach yourself how to do anything, especially if you developed, or you develop very good, autodidact skills. I just had to wash my hand for a minute. Hope you guys don't mind. But yeah, this is Rockefeller Center in this thing here. So if anybody wants to learn, well, the very basic concepts of like learning Python or something, or learning how to code, number one resource I would recommend is YouTube. I'm not just saying that because I'm on YouTube. And then number two is a website called codeacademy.com. So Code Academy has so many different free resources. Oh, now we're stuck in this thing. So Code Academy is fantastic. I would check that out. Yeah, MN is like Code Academy. That was cool. I think that was the most people we've ever fit in there. 726 people we fit in there. Let's see if they still have the roller skating tonight. Or, oh, they may have closed it down. Yeah, I think they closed it down now. Hey, David says, Tom, at a certain point in your career, your resume and CV speaks for itself. I have zero issues getting an interview. Oh, 1,000%. So what David said is actually 100,000% correct. So here's what I'll say. Ever since I landed an enterprise, say a proof of concept thing, right? Because if somebody hired you to sell into enterprise, which means you're meeting with Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies sometimes and presenting to them, they sort of understand that you know what you're doing already. So the theory is, okay, if this person was trusted with building relationships with C-levels at the enterprise level, well, he's probably is marketable and he could probably do some good at our company too. So I 100% agree with what David said, 1,000%. Hey, Ahmed is here. Good to see you, Ahmed. So this is the FAO Schwartz building, or the store, I should say. And FAO Schwartz used to be where the old where the Apple store used to be on 5th Avenue, all the way up there. Michael says Walmart Straight Talk. All right, so this is the Rainbow Room. This is actually where you can go into the observation deck, the top of Rockefeller Center. Hey, Kathy Lyons is here, says, hello, Tom, good evening, welcome. Good to see you, Kathy Lyons, welcome. So just to quickly recap everybody, for those of you who are just joining the stream, if you want to review the investor deck for Okta, so Okta reported quarterly earnings after the bell today. I think they're down 10% after the report, even though they beat on both the top and the bottom line. If you type Okta, OKTA in the chat, what you'll find is the investor deck. And I want you guys to read through it, because I think cybersecurity in general is a very good opportunity for investment, I believe, still going forward into the next 5 to 10 years. Now, I'm not saying Okta is going to be a winner. What I'm trying to do is expose you guys as much as possible to understanding how to read an earnings report, what to look for in the earnings reports. And as we talked about, one of the good things, one of the positives about Okta's earnings, wow guys, check out the line for Adele's Famous tonight. That's like a 3-hour line right here. It goes all the way from here, stretches all the way down there. That's like a 3-hour line. Anyway, one of the things they need to look for is deal flow in excess of $100,000. And Okta, I think, grew that deal flow in excess of $100,000, 35% year over year. Hey, Dan Zhang says, thank you for your advice, Tom. I've spent years to study to become an actuary, then realized it's not what I want to do. Been really depressed lately. Well, Dan, it's never too late to change careers, dude. I mean, at 28, I mean, the opportunities are absolutely endless at 28 years old, man. So yeah, I mean, Dan, if you want to connect, I think you're already in the Discord, all that stuff. In this week's newsletter that I'm going to try to get out, I'm trying to crank it out. I'm gonna try to put some more tips and tricks on how to, get into tech sales, things like that, how to tweak your resume. So keep tuned for that, but thank you, Dan, I appreciate it. Yeah, Gregory's like, Dan, you should look into data science as well. I mean, with your skills, Dan, you could probably just about transition into any career you want. I mean, data science. Hey, Google says, have an interview with JP Morgan tomorrow, Tom. Wish me luck. Dude, fantastic. Love that. So Google, I wish you luck, but I need to ask you something. I've been waiting for you to join the chat all day. I got to ask you a question. So Goldman Sachs comes out and says that they are now going to require all of their employees 100% to come back to the office 5 days a week. No more hybrid, no more working from home. It's feet, or it's, well, I can't swear on the stream, but it's butts in seats. If you don't have your butt in your seat, you're fired. That's the precedent that they just set. So do you think that's a mistake from Goldman Sachs to say that? Do you think it's a mistake, hard strung, of bringing all their analysts and associates back to the office, or do you think it's the right thing to do? So now that you're interviewing at JP Morgan Chase, my question to you is, if they adopt the same policy, at, let's say, JP Morgan Chase, would you have second thoughts about joining the organization, or do you want to go back to the office anyway? What are your thoughts on that? Christian Wilson says it's a mistake. Okay. Bagels and Walks says flexibility is the name of the game. Folks will vote with their feet. You know, I think you may be right, Bagels and Walks, but then again, I think Goldman Sachs understands that their name carries such weight, and so many people are lined up applying to Goldman Sachs that they probably have a little bit of leverage to do that. I don't know, we'll find out. It's going to be interesting. Jansen Via says, Tom, it's a big mistake. Marcy says it's a big mistake. Okay. Andrea's A says it's a logical policy. Google says, I heard that too. JP Morgan doesn't want hybrid either. Jamie Dimon wants everybody back into the office. Yeah, I mean, I think especially in banking, right? If you work in investment banking specifically,
I got time for this shit.
I mean, it's, before COVID, you were sometimes in the office for, 75 hours a week, 80 hours a week, easily. So, I don't know, I think it's very hard to build the culture remotely. That's sort of my take on things. And I think if I was still very early on in my career, I don't think I would do very well 100% remotely. I learned a lot of what I learned in sales by being in the office, chaperoning or shadowing the best salespeople in the office. And I think it's very hard for career development if you're in your home as a 20-year-old kid fresh out of college. How are you going to learn anything if you're not, with the top people in the office? I don't know. That's sort of my take. Hey, Denise is here. Says, hello, Tom. Good to see you, Denise. Google says, walks in Wall Street. Even with hybrid, as a new grad, I would have been in the office every day. In all honesty, I agree. That's sort of my stance. If you are just out of college, you got to be in the office, man, because you need to learn. You need to grow your network. If you've been in the game for, let's say, 15 to 20 years and you're a vice president, you're a VP or associate or something like that, even if you're a managing director, then yeah, you could sort of kick back and take it easy. But as an analyst, you gotta go to war, man, every day. You gotta be in there, making connections. I don't know, that's just sort of the way I think. But Susanna says, Tom, I think it's a mistake. The world has changed after COVID. Those returning are being forced to do it. They will not be happy in the office. And I understand and I appreciate that take as well. I also think it depends on what type of position that you're in, right? If you are in, let's say if you're a software engineer or something, then I think it makes more sense to, work remote. But if you're trying to close deals, if you're trying to raise money or, take companies public, I think you need to do that in person. I don't know. Mike C says, do VPs work remotely? Some. Alejandro says it's important to get hands-on experience. I agree with that too. Christian Wilson says they shouldn't be hardlining it. The key word is flexible. So I think we're pretty much split 50-50 in the chat. I think we're pretty much split. So I don't know, maybe you guys are right. Maybe you're going to see a mass exodus from Goldman Sachs. But the thing is, even if they have a ton of attrition at Goldman Sachs, something tells me they're not going to have a difficult time hiring more people. There's probably going to be a line of people out the door that want to apply. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but hey, SP says if the culture of a company is built for remote first, one can succeed in a work from a home environment. That's a good point. That's a good point. But do you think in a startup environment, let's say if you're trying to build a company or build a business, do you think you can really do that successfully if you're not, working together with your employees like in the office? I don't know. I've never personally built a business from the ground up, or at least a business where I hire multiple employees. But I don't know. Something tells me it'd be a little bit difficult. Again, I think it just depends on what your position is. If you're in engineering, software engineering, something like that, then I think remote is fine. Melissa, good to see you. Susanna says only because it's Goldman Sachs they can do it. In other places they won't fly. Walking Minnesota says I prefer in person, but it's... Oh, okay. That makes sense. David Individual says face-to-face collaboration is much more efficient. True. I don't know. I'm liking all these comments in the chat. It looks like we're split 50-50 here, guys. Jeff W77 says, Tom, I'm all making people work on site, but at least let people work at any office they have space in. JP Morgan Chase has a modest high-rise lease in downtown Detroit. They should let people work there. Okay. Well, we definitely got a lot of opinions in the chat, which I appreciate. It seems like we're split 50-50 on it, which is, I think, pretty standard. Here's what I will say. I think the last thing I'll say about the work from home is if you have a family with kids, I think work from home is actually very important for those type of people because, you know, we always talk about on the stream, you know, we want to make money, and that's all well and good. But I think if you have kids at home, it's kind of nice to be able to take them to school every morning. It's nice to be able to see all their sporting events and things like that. And as you're working remotely, I think it allows you to do that stuff. So just as long as you're still productive, you're still producing, and your productivity isn't dropping at all, I think you should be allowed to do whatever you want. Dan Zhang says some people can work more efficiently by themselves. Some prefer human interaction. Agreed. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We usually go live around 5 days a week between New York City and Miami, Florida. You know, a lot of people in Times Square are here tonight. I would not have expected that. Big Picks is Tom, first year advisors should not work remote. I think I agree. So my stance, as you guys know, is if you're early in your career, you probably shouldn't work remote, right? You need to make connections, you need to build your network, you need to build your book of business. But if you've earned it, if you built your book of business and you're a little bit older, then I'd say go for it. I'd say, you know, work remote all you want. So these are the very famous red steps. Marcy is like, Tom, I've honestly spent too much time in the office pretending to work, so it's really not necessary. Yeah, I've always thought about that. Like, what do you think is the actual percentage of time that you're actually doing real work throughout the day? Like, I'm talking about deep work, not doing something else, like actually working. Hey, Paulo says, hey Tom, what do you think about the presidential Brazilian election? I don't know anything about it, to be honest, man. I'm not too well versed in the Brazilian election, to be honest. Yeah, Kevin Ramsey makes a good point, says underwriting and collections can be remote. Yeah, because that's back office, right? Like, you're not, you know, client facing. I think that I agree with that. If you're not client facing, you could pretty much do whatever you want to. So this is the H&M building here. You know, the last thing I'll say is that today was the last trading day of the month on Wall Street. And if you look at a monthly chart across the board of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the NASDAQ, and S&P 500, the monthly closes were really, really bad. And I mean, like, really bad. If you look at the bond market, we're getting a really big pickup in a sell-off in the bond market. We're seeing that 10-year US Treasury yield now well above 3%. We have that 2-year Treasury yield now yielding well above the 10-year US Treasury yield. The yield curve is inverted, so usually when that type of stuff happens, we set ourselves up for a situation where it's a black swan event. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if somebody said, where do you think the next black swan event could happen in? I think it would probably happen overseas. It actually probably wouldn't happen here in the United States. And I think that has to do with the Chinese commercial paper market. I think if we really understand the ramifications and the ripple effects that could potentially have, I think that would be it. Others would say there's just a global general bubble across all asset classes, including real estate, including, debt, equities. But I think if there was one thing that could possibly set it off, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, I'm just saying if it did happen and if I had to guess what caused it, my guess would probably be in the Chinese commercial paper market. Assuming the CCP doesn't step in and bail everything out, that would be my guess. Hey, Lizzie Hatch is here. Says, hey Tom, hey everybody, I never want to go back to the office. Yeah, it seems like we're split 50-50. I mean, look, I think that there's going to be a big push for corporate America to get people back into the office, especially if they have very, very expensive leases in office space, right? So they're gonna justify it like, look, COVID's winding down, everybody has the vaccines, it's safe to go back to the office, we're paying all this money for our lease, so why not utilize it? So yeah, photos from around New York, a very unpredictable or unforeseen event, I agree. Yeah, Tom from Midtown says the crowds are proof that it's time to return to work. If people are okay being out for fun, they're okay being in the office too. It's a good point. It's definitely a good point. I think the biggest argument, Tom from Midtown, is people are going to say, look, I could be just as productive at home than I can be in the office, right? Which I think for a lot of people, that's true. But I also think it's hard to build a company culture if everybody's just at home, right? And I think that's obviously more geared towards if you're in sales or if you're in banking or something like that. I don't know. I like being in the office. I think during COVID, when I was working remote out of my New York City apartment, I was going crazy a little bit. But I don't know. I think it's going to be split 50-50. I think there's going to be a lot of continued debate about this. So I'm seeing a lot of people saying that there's a big difference between, they're saying if there's crowds outside and people are comfortable enough to go outside and party and have a good time, then they should be comfortable to go back into the office. I agree. So here's some data coming out of New York City. So obviously subway ridership, Long Island Railroad ridership is down a ridiculous amount. However, it's actually fully recovered on the weekends. So people are taking the subway not to get to work, not to meet with clients, but they're taking it on the weekends to go to the beach, to go meet with their friends. Maybe people come into the city from New Jersey or something like that. So that's what we're seeing. And it's so strange because it's causing a major problem in the MTA. And the reason for that is because the vast majority of the track work, right, the vast majority of the repairs happen on the weekends because usually ridership is a little bit lighter on the weekends than it is during the week. Now that's totally flipped the opposite. So the delays have been so crazy in the subway on the weekends because there's so many people in the subways on the weekends as opposed to the weekdays, and the MTA continues to do track work and all that stuff during the weekend. So COVID has just flipped everything upside down. I think it's quite funny. Hey, Tux Brown is here. Is like, Tom, I commute to the office only once per week. Hey, Andy is here. Good to see you, Andy from South Korea. Thank you for joining. Always a pleasure to see you, Andy. So this is 49th Street and Broadway on the corner here. Google says all I know is if I get this job every night in the office, I'm gonna watch Walks on Wall Street. That's hilarious. Yeah, maybe you can, you and Jamie Dimon can stream Walks on Wall Street as you're trying to close some deals. So this is Barclays Investment Bank right here, and Barclays is next to the BNP Paribas, which is the French investment bank. Yeah, just hearts, as I think a lot of people's priorities have shifted has shifted. Hey Jimmy, this is Tom, InfoSec field, and I would even say IT field in general, from operational level all the way up to the chain to C-level, are 100% working remote. Yeah, I mean, a lot of my buddies who are software engineers, they're 100% remote. They just stay home all day. You know, even for salespeople too, hey, good to see you. Yes, even for salespeople too, you could work remotely. But as you move up the stack to like enterprise deals, it's very, very hard to close big enterprise deals if you're not actively going out on site and seeing your clients. You know, maybe an SMB, if you're selling to, you know, mom and pop shops, if you're selling to companies who only have like 50 employees, you know, then I think it's doable. However, if you're working on larger deals, selling into Fortune 500, Fortune 50, there's no way that you're probably going to get deals done if you're selling over the phone. I mean, maybe you could set initial appointments, but I think as you move down the sales cycle into a closing opportunity or something like that, it's going to require you to get on a plane and fly to the customer. At least in my view, anyway. Hey, PLA30, good to see you. Lizzie Hatch says, I want to get into cybersecurity. I am 58 years old. Yeah, go for it. I'd say go for it. All right, everybody, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark, so we're gonna head back down to the Moynihan train station where I have to get the train. I'll take you guys with me. Ibrahim Azam is here, welcome. Good to see you, Ibrahim. Lizzie Hatch, I don't think so. I do not think you're too old to get into cybersecurity. Hey, Shin Lee says, hey Tom, please answer my question. What's your question, man? I'll answer it. If you ask the question, maybe I skipped it. There's a lot of chatters. But yeah, just retype your question. I'd be more than happy to answer it. David Randall says technology sales between remote, via phone and remotely. Hey, Sunset Blues is when people work from home, they want to get out on the weekends and spend money. That's true. Hey Lizzie, thank you so much for the $5 donation. You are very, very kind. I appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Tux Brown says Adam is a crook. So we were actually just talking about Adam Neumann. He raised about $350 million from Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z. However, regardless of what you think about the guy, he is a master salesperson. I mean, you can't get a better like persuader than that guy. So if you type !we, WE in the chat, it'll drop the link to Adam Neumann's interview with Andrew Ross Sorkin, and you can sort of see how he frames things. And he is a very, very good communicator. And I think actually they may potentially study that interview at Harvard Business School for how to communicate, how to frame, and how to sell. It's very possible. So again, for the people who are just joining, I'll tell you, one of my good friends, he said, Tom, and my friend works in venture capital, and my friend is like, I cannot believe how Andrew Ross Sorkin raised $350 million after the whole WeWork debacle. I mean, how Adam Neumann raised $350 million after the whole WeWork debacle. To which I said to my friend, really? I'm surprised he didn't raise $500 million. I'm surprised that guy didn't siphon $500 million from Andreessen Horowitz.
I'm getting them.
Adam Neumann is a master salesperson. Now, again, I'm not saying what he did at WeWork was good. I'm not condoning anything he did. That's not the point. All I'm saying is if you watch that interview and you're interested in sort of learning public speaking or how to polish up your tonality or just how to break down concepts if somebody's trying to sort of back you into a corner on a very hard question, he did a really good job of that in the interview. I thought he did well. And look, Andrew Ross Sorkin is a very, very good host as well. And at times, I think Adam Neumann put him in a pretzel. So we are going to head over to, I think this is 8th Avenue, and then we'll head back down to 34th Street. A lot of people out tonight in New York City for Wednesday. Yeah, Tux Brown's like law school students can learn something from that interview, I know. I'm telling you guys, mark my words, in a couple years, they'll be using that interview at like Harvard Business School to study that interview, I promise. JJ's is studied, yes, admired, no. Yeah, and again, what I'm saying is I'm not trying to say that Adam Neumann's a great guy. All I'm saying is that I'm not surprised that he raised $350 million from A16Z. And when you watch the interview, it almost comes off as, oh my gosh, like, yeah, he was justified to buy that plane. He didn't have to, just fly commercial. It's very strange. I mean, you guys will see. I can't really explain it. Watch the interview, and then maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow night on the stream. But very effective communicator. Very, very effective. Borat, no, I don't think so. I think web development is a very good career path. With just how tight the labor market is here, I even think you're going to see a lot of companies hiring people with only certs, like certificates. Now, obviously, it's better. You're going to be more marketable with the degree. But I think in this particular environment that we're in, I think companies are still going to give you a shot, are still going to give you a look. If you just took like a coding boot camp or something like that, you'd be surprised. You'd be really, really surprised. So on Friday, everybody, I think it's going to be the most important stream of the week. Friday, I think, is really going to set the tone to either confirm or give us a pretty good idea if the Fed is going to 100% raise interest rates by 75 basis points at the FOMC meeting on September 21st, because we're getting the non-farm payrolls. Now, if you think back to this time last month, many economists on Wall Street were expecting the non-farm payrolls to come in at roughly 270,000 new jobs. They were totally off the mark, and instead payrolls or non-farm payrolls came in at 529,000. Okay? So if that continues, the Fed is definitely going to go big and raise interest rates 75 basis points, and I think equities are going to continue to fall under pressure here. Does anybody know where futures are? Because tomorrow is the first trading day of the month. And September is usually not a very positive month for stocks. It's actually usually a very, very negative month for stocks. So it's very possible we could retest these lows on the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. Yeah, photos from around New York's like all red today. Yikes. Austin City Limits is S&P 500 E-mini futures in the red. Well, we had just a vicious close. A vicious close today. And the monthly close was horrible. We gave up all the gains. I think for the month, the S&P was negative around 4%, the NASDAQ almost negative 5%, the Dow Jones, I think like 3.9, just call it 4%. So definitely was not a good August. I don't think September is gonna set up to be anything better. Hey, Dolly Girl Twins, good to see you. Welcome, hopefully you're well. That's actually a good data point, Marcy. Is like September is when people shop the least. Month when everybody season, right? As we go into November, as we go into Q4. Hey, Western Mass Dave. How are you, my friend? Good to see you. As always, we're walking down 8th Avenue tonight. We almost never walk down 8th. Very, very rare for us to walk down 8th. So to your right is the Port Authority bus terminal. Now, there's been a lot going on. You've been having the governor of Texas and the governor of Arizona. Authority bus terminal, horrible.
Sir, can I get something to eat, man?
Michael says Anthony's pretzel. Enterprise software company Datadog has their office in the New York Times building right here. And from some of my friends who work at Datadog, they've been saying that all of their higher-ups are making them return to the office too. Right in this building. Could we get a quick time check in the chat? I just want to make sure we are right on time here. Ah, 10:50. Copy that. So everybody, I do have to wrap here. I have to hurry up and catch my train, but we will be live, or we should be live tomorrow. Same time, 8:30 Eastern Time, live from New York City. So if you guys enjoyed tonight's live stream, feel free to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Finish the week strong. Obviously Thursday, almost near the end of the week. And to the Mighty Bull, have a good night wherever you are, because there is always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look. Sally, thank you so much. Dolly Girl Twins, all of our moderators, Dan Zhang, Lizzie Hatch. Everybody, we'll see you tomorrow. Make it a strong finish to the week. Make it a good first day of the month. First trading day of the month, September. I think it's going to be a volatile month. We'll cover it here on Walks on Wall Street. Take it easy, everybody. Like, subscribe. See you tomorrow, 8:30. Have a great night.